Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the week's events in the world of Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Hello, Chris. And you know what? I'm a little bit crooked. I just noticed. I'm going to try to.
Okay.
There we go. That's a little better.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, good. Well, we had a week, and it was mainly, what with ending on May 9th last week, it was mainly Dianetics Week, kind of at the bunker. Let's go ahead and lead, actually, with the Dianetics Anniversary event. What do we know?
So it was Alex Barnes Ross that let me know he had seen a sign-up sheet for this May 1st to May 8th bookathon. And so that told me that there was some kind of special event going on. Now, he has subsequently told me they always had some kind of a book sale event this last week. But this did seem like they were making a bigger deal about it. Of course they would. It's the 75th anniversary. So it turns out that they were having some kind of award they were calling the first fully international Book One Award Saturday night at Ruth Eckerd Hall in Clearwater. They are planning, they are asking Scientologists to come into their local org the following week on Saturday, the 17th, to see the video of that. I assume Miscavige is going to be there. Miscavige is in Clearwater, but Alex doesn't think that Miscavige will be there. So we'll see. I mean, whatever. It's interesting to see that they're trying to make a big deal about the 75th anniversary, and so do we. I mean, it's this thing that started everything, and it's a very problematic book. But clearly Scientology is trying to do something, and the thing that they do every year is they try to rope in these unsuspecting little towns in proclaiming May 9th Dianetics Day by saying Dianetics is this important book, the most important book on the human mind by the great L. Ron Hubbard. And, these local municipalities never even Google Dianetics. They never even figure out that it's the basis of the Scientology movement. And so that again happened this year where some small towns were announcing that it was going to be their Dianetics Day and that kind of thing. So that was the kind of thing going into that day. Well, then we had a couple surprises. One of them was one of the towns that said it was going to celebrate Hubbard was Brighton, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, not too far from where you are.
That's
And
right.
Claire Headley had told me that she had sent an offer to the mayor, Greg Mills, to meet with him about that. And I had let her know that there's another town in Michigan that was also celebrating, proclaiming Dianetics Day. And I had sent them some materials last week. Well, you guys won that little contest because this Greg Mills, mayor of Brighton, announced that they were not going to do that proclamation. And then he actually met with you. And I was very happy. Claire sent me a report about that, a photo of you guys. So you tell me, how'd that all go down? It looked
It was
great.
awesome. Absolutely. It was a bit of a surprise. Yeah, Brighton's just north of me and just a few minutes away. And the mayor there had announced, okay, good. Yeah, Dianetics Day. Sure, absolutely. Right. They had received an email from West US, not from the local Denver organization, which I found interesting. So apparently these things go out from this centralized management location. And it was even signed LRH PPRO, West United States, right? I mean, they just kind of take the titles they have. Anyway, it's a pretty rubber stamp operation, you come to learn. And in meeting, Claire reached out to the mayor as the head of and board member of the Aftermath Foundation. And so she and Mark Headley and Bruce Hines as the president, or as the executive director, and myself all met with him and brought some materials. And I put a little Dianetics fact sheet together with some of the more choice quotes about Dianetics or pulled from Dianetics, including the one about the little girl being, passionately kissed, amongst many other. As you said, it's a problematic book. There are a ton of quotes in that book that are just offensive in some of the statements Hubbard had to make about how easy it is to cure cancer, or leukemia, or bursitis, and all these various things. So the mayor saw it right away. I mean, he met with us and he was like, "Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely." And he pointed something out that I'll share with everybody here, which is how accessible these people are. I want to encourage everybody out there. It's a phone call, it's an email away to actually have a conversation with somebody who wants to listen. The man was not put out by us. It was not a bother to hear us. We were constituents. We were people he actually wanted to hear from. And he listened with very rapt attention to not only, hey, Dianetics ain't so great, but the whole process of how this happens. Because what we ended up doing was proofing him up against future efforts at proclamations. And what I realized in talking with him about it was the tie-in word is not, and there's a legion of front groups. I wasn't going to teach this man the difference between Narconon and Criminon and applied scholastics in 10 minutes. That would be a ridiculous thing for me to even try to do. It's going to go in one ear out the other. I said, listen, here's the thing that ties it all together, that this is all you have to remember. L. Ron Hubbard. It's in all of it. It's the author, it's the creator, it's the founder, it's the person that they can't avoid that. They'll avoid the word Scientology.
Right. That's right.
And he did not appreciate learning that. He was like, God damn those people. Wow, that was really not okay. And we were like, yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, in the future, anything that has Hubbard, that's going to be the trigger. That's going to be the key word to watch out for. And I say that so, our viewers can know, how easy this is to do. It was an afternoon. It was very fun. And we gave him a bunch of materials about the Aftermath Foundation as well. And I think we'll probably be maybe meeting with some other civil leaders as well, civic leaders here locally, just to kind of get the word out on this stuff.
Good.
And I encourage our viewers to do the same.
Yeah, great. So yeah, that was an interesting, and I was trying to get a statement out of this little town of Morris, Michigan too, because I had emailed the mayor, the city council members, public information officer. I had sent them all, that quote from the book and said, listen, are you really going to stand behind a book that has this in it? And they kept telling me, we're going to give you a statement, we're going to give you a statement, and they never did. They chickened out. So, that gives Dave the opportunity at his awards or whoever's there to say, look, we got an endorsement from Portage, Michigan. Like that matters. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. So yeah, on the day, so then another thing that I did at the Substack leading up to the anniversary was I heard from a couple readers that were sending me contemporaneous reviews that came out about the book in 1950 and 1951. And that was great. That was fun to go through those. But really, for me, there's only one that matters. There's just this incredible review in the January 1951 issue of Scientific American. And I've known about it for years, and I love that opening line so much. It's just incredible little review. But looking at it again this time, it suddenly struck me, this is Robbie. And, if you watched Oppenheimer a couple of years ago on the theater, Isidore Robbie. You know what a figure he is. You know what an interesting character he is. He was played so well in that movie. And I realized, this, it's almost like the review was new for me again. So I went and I wrote it to make sure people understood who Isidore Isaac Robbie was. He won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1944. He's the one that made the discoveries and is the reason we have MRI machines today to help us detect cancer and that kind of thing. He helped develop radar that really helped win World War II. And yeah, he did work, consult on the A-bomb project with Oppenheimer. He was there for the Trinity test in 1945. But then a few years later, somebody gave him a copy of Dianetics. And he wrote the best review of all time, in my opinion. And let me just again quote the very first line because it's so wonderful. And I wish more people had seen this. Maybe it would have changed things. I don't know. But the very first line from his review, Chris, is this volume probably contains more promises and less evidence per page than has any publication since the invention of printing.
Nailed it.
I mean,
nailed it.
Oh, and that's
Nailed
a Nobel Prize winner.
Oh yeah, this is somebody who is a serious person reading very unserious work by somebody who's pretending, cosplaying at being a serious person.
That's right.
And the reactions are uniform from those PhD level, doctor level folks who were reviewing it back then. They trounced this thing, man. They destroyed it. And that's probably the origin story on Hubbard's hatred of psychiatry, to be honest, is he just couldn't stand the hit to his ego. And
Well, and remember, there's I thought about rerunning this, but Alec oh gosh, is it Alec Leonavala is the name of the author? He wrote
Hmm.
that book Astounding that was so great about the history of these authors that were working with John Campbell at the time.
Yes.
And he found this incredible document. We printed it 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that, actually, 7 or 8 years ago. Hubbard wanted so badly to have that imprimatur of approval from actual medical doctors, psychiatrists, and that he kind of believed that he really had found the key to the human mind.
Hmm.
But anytime, and so this is before the book came out. In 49, they were shopping it around. Campbell was helping him. They got this Joseph Winter they got him on the line,
Yeah.
right? This Joseph Winter they were like, oh wow, we've got a physician. This is everything. And he wrote the very first introduction to Dianetics and the first edition. And then soon after realized it was all hooey and separated from them. But they were desperate to find a psychiatrist who would even criticize the book. I mean, they just wanted somebody because with stuff like that, it's like the worst thing for them would be just to be ignored, right?
Right.
And so when they couldn't find a psychiatrist even to criticize it, Hubbard invented one. And he sent a 10-page critique of Dianetics as if it was written by a psychiatrist. And it was Hubbard criticizing his own book. And as Navala pointed out, uh, uh, Alec Navala Lee, I keep messing up his name, I'm sorry.
No
As
worries.
he pointed out, uh, Hubbard's criticisms are pretty good.
Yeah.
like, like even Hubbard, pretending to be somebody else, realized how full of shit Dianetics was. Anyway, I thought about reprinting that this time, but I didn't. But anyway, yes, there was lots of criticism of the book when it came out, but still my favorite is from Robbie. And especially if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer and you remember that character so well played on the screen, I think that that review means even more to you.
Absolutely. And thanks actually for contextualizing that with that movie because I hadn't connected those dots myself. And so that's really good. And I agree with you. This blistering review is just I mean, it's just got no time. This is clearly somebody who's writing from the perspective of I have zero time for your bullshit. Right. So
And
here's
and if you read his concise summary, he clearly understands what Hubbard is claiming to do. So you can't accuse him of just, oh, he's just like,
Mhm.
disapproving of somebody that's not in the club. He's not paying any attention. He clearly read that book carefully
Yeah.
and realized how it was just making a lot of promises with no evidence. And I wish more people had seen that review at the time.
Yeah, me too. I will comment going back on the Dianetics events, and Alex mentioned that Miscavige probably wasn't going to be there. I agree. It'd be interesting if he is, because like Auditor's Day of many years past, it's interesting to point out that Miscavige will sometimes do away with a thing by just not putting attention on it anymore. He doesn't have to cancel it. He just stops showing up at the events. Auditor's Day, I bring up as an event. Every year it was held around September, and it was a day that Scientologists have as a holiday of theirs. And it was a big, big deal event. All the into execs on stage, Miscavige leading it. I mean, it was a big deal. And then
Mm.
suddenly it wasn't.
Mm.
And Dianetics seems to be going that same way. The Dianetics Day, May 9th, I mean, this was a very, very important date in Scientology's history. This is literally the start of it all. The
But
bolt
you know
from the
what? You know what,
blue.
Chris? You know
Uh-huh.
what, Chris? I was putting together my past is prologue,
Hmm.
which is where I just look up old stuff from ARS and from past years to kind of remind people what went down.
Yeah.
And I found a reference to the 50th anniversary of Dianetics event, which would have been the year 2000.
Yeah.
And Miscavige skipped that too.
See?
And I asked Claire and Mark about that, and Claire had a specific answer about that. She said that it had to do with the fact that it was at that point that he was in Clearwater dealing with the whole Lisa McPherson thing.
Ah.
And she said that he skipped it to prove the point of how subpar events were without him. Wow.
Wow,
So that's
indeed.
uh, so
Wow,
he skipped
indeed.
it in 2000. We'll see if he skips it in 2025.
Yes, we will. Interesting. Just something to point out there, right? Um, okay. Now we also had, oh, and one other thing just to throw out on that local story that was kind of fun here in Denver is there's a local reporter, Kyle Clark, who is
Yes.
local news. Awesome, awesome guy.
Well,
Um,
I was going to
yeah,
ask you about him because that's when I first heard that Greg Mills, the mayor, the city had decided not to go through with it.
yeah.
Was that Kyle Clark had reported that, and then I saw his segment from the night before, and it was very good. And I don't know much about the guy, so you tell me.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy. He's local. He wants to stay local. He got some fame during the election cycle last year when he posted some debate that he had with local GOP on some issues, and he held them to account. It was a very good interview, so he got a little notoriety for that. And he has a dedicated local news show that he does, a half-hour show, I think, where that quote was taken from on the Dianetics thing, where he covers local news.
Yeah.
So no, he's legit, and he's a good guy, and he's level-headed. So his take on that was here's some local color for you guys. Guess who's still trolling around out here? You know, it was great to see. Because one last thing I'll say on the Dianetics thing. I almost guarantee you that Miscavige or not, Scientologists were just told that Dianetics, the modern science of mental health, is selling highest ever volume, never booming out the roof, never been more popular. And I have to ask any of you watching this right now, have you heard or seen anything about Dianetics in years?
No,
You know,
no. Well, and then
there's
then so Friday was the actual anniversary, and I did what
mm,
I did 5 years ago for the 70th anniversary. I blog when I left the Village Voice and went to my own website. I One of the first projects I wanted to do to say, look, if I'm really gonna do this and focus on Scientology, I need to know the very basic things. And so I blogged Dianetics from cover to cover with Vance Woodward. We had a great time. And we read, we just read, we were laughing and bringing up all kinds of crazy stuff that I didn't know was in that book. And we
yeah,
went through all the chapters of the book. Well, that was 2013. But then it was a few years later, I got an email from a reader pointing out this incredible passage that's about two-thirds of the way through the book. And I had missed it when we were blogging. And I think what happens is when you're two-thirds of the way through that book, your eyes are glazing over. I mean,
absolutely.
it's so ludicrous. It's such a bad book. So I'm sorry I missed it, even though I was trying to read every word in the whole thing. It's an incredible passage. You're very familiar with it, Chris. And so beginning in about 2016, 2017, I've been doing what I can to really publicize the fact that this vile quote is in the book talking about how a 7-year-old girl should not be recoiling from the passionate kiss of an adult man, that there's something wrong with her, that she had some prenatal engram or something.
That's right.
And I just can't believe that that's in everything, every edition from the first edition in 1950 to the copy they're selling today. It's in there. And the funny thing is, when I bring up that quotation and say that it's just a flat out endorsement of child molestation, there's no other way to read it. Scientologists, current and former, turn themselves into pretzels trying to convince me that I'm wrong, that I'm not
Yep.
reading that right, that it doesn't say what it says. And I mean, this week, I was attacked by a former Scientologist who was
Wow.
calling me names and says I'm an idiot and can't believe that I would say that about Hubbard. And I'm like, look, it's right there in the book. This really triggers a lot of people, but I'm going to keep pointing it out because look, it's just the most vile, quote about how a 7-year-old girl should not push back from the passionate kiss of an adult man. Scientology itself, on its Twitter account, when somebody brought that up to them, said it was this blogger that's saying it, and they're full of it, and they tried to claim that the word passionate did not mean in 1950 what it means today, and that in 1950 there was no sexual content to the word passionate. And I mean, it was ludicrous. And I pulled out a different quote in the same book where Hubbard talks about Dad, Papa getting passionate and the fetus getting bumped around like in a washing machine. Because guess what they're doing, right? Because Hubbard was obsessed with rough sex between mom and dad
Yeah,
messing up the fetus. He was obsessed with that. He uses that example over and over again in Dianetics.
that's right.
And yes, he used that word passionate. So no, I mean it freaks out Scientologists that I point out this passage, and you do, and Claire does. I know everybody does
Oh
now.
yeah, well, it's hard not to. I mean, it's just it says what it says, and I invite anybody to go check it out for themselves. Right? You can go read a passage, and you can see exactly what we're talking about. And you can contextualize things however, people do that all day, every day. I can have no control over any of that. But what I will say is that if you look at the history of Dianetics and the history of Scientology and what people have done with this stuff, and that includes covering up child sexual assaults and child this and child that, and it's all in there and it's all there many, many times. This is not one offs, these are not outliers. This is just systemic with this organization, and it's there. And you look at passages like this, and you see a building block for a way of thinking about kids that opens them up to so much abuse that it's an argument that really isn't worth making. Is how I see it, right? In terms of trying to justify Hubbard's words. Well, that statement doesn't make, okay, look at it in the context of what we're talking about, a destructive cult that harms people and has done things to children that are unconscionable.
Yeah.
And you put it together like that, and I think we kind of make the point, At least I hope so. So thanks for bringing that up, Tony. I agree with you completely on that. It is a passionate issue, as they say.
It is.
Yeah. So now on a different topic, and one that we didn't talk about before the show, because I'm actually a little curious what Tony's going to think about what I have to say on this. But first, the LRH Hall, this Hubbard Hall that they're trying to build out in Clearwater. What's the story? What was the rundown for this week?
Yeah, so we've been writing, covering this pretty closely for several weeks now. That Scientology wants to buy this road in downtown Clearwater to complete this plaza in front of what's going to be their L. Ron Hubbard Hall. They own the land for the hall. The hall's coming, but they want to complete the plaza that's the land between the hall and the flag building. And Clearwater, the 3 of 5 city council members were for it, but then a last minute proposal came up that had a different idea for that land. They got 3 of the council members to agree to table things and wait for a month. But now Mark Bunker has reported that the David Albritton, the one sort of swing vote in that plan there, he has now basically agreed he's gonna side with Scientology. So Scientology has its 3 votes that it needs to make this happen. So that was one thing I was talking to Mark about. But then he let me know somebody had given him some audio from the LRH birthday event in March. And we've had those leaks before. That's always fun to hear David Miscavige. And this was just 8 minutes, but it was the 8 minutes when Miscavige introduces the idea of the hall, and then he plays a video. I mean, we can't see it, but you can tell from hearing it what's being said. He plays a video showing the hall, and the narration is by Shane Johnson, this actor that they use for the Super Bowl ads. I know his voice very, very well. And he goes through all the different features of the hall, how incredible it's going to be, the state of the art this, state of the art that, best sound system in the world, all this stuff. You can imagine they're going to spend so many millions of dollars on this thing, and that's that's the 8 minutes we had. And so I really appreciated that Mark let the Underground Bunker put that out, and he had some thoughts about it. But I'm very curious to hear what thoughts you had about it.
Yeah, just a couple. And the hall is what it is. They're trying to centralize events and they're trying to make a really nice, great place and have this control factor in there in Clearwater, and that's great. But there's just something that occurred to me in the very language of this announcement that I needed to comment on, and that is that it's becoming clearer and clearer to me, and Mitch Brisker has talked about this in some length in his personal conversations with Miscavige, that Miscavige has looked to the Mormon Church for some degree of inspiration and figure out of what to do and how to do it. Not that he's trying to turn Scientology into Mormonism. Don't get me wrong on this one, right? It's not about the beliefs of Mormonism that he's after, but the organization of it. They have the TV, they have the this, they have the that, they have legit many more members than Scientology does. It's a long conversation to have, but what I wanted to point out on this one is just it leaped out at me. The language of this announcement. Let me give a couple of these, and then I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Yet this hall is also a living instrument, seamlessly integrated within its walls. An unseen symphony of technology comes to life. Okay, I'll just stop there. Look up the article. It's worth actually going through the language of this, because I believe this is David Miscavige's Tabernacle Choir building
Yeah.
space,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
where I'm going with that, right? It's a perfect acoustic space. In fact, I think he's one-upping the Mormons in a way. And I think he actually looks to that. That's why I'm pointing it out, right? I think this may well take over for the ICE events, as you mentioned, that they'll just bring them from England. Who wants
Well,
to fly
yeah.
over to England all the time, right?
So to point out another
Yeah.
quote in there is that near the end, Shane Johnson mentions, this is just the beginning. And then he talks about how the seats are going to be able to disappear into the floor.
Yep.
And it's going to literally turn from an auditorium into a ballroom. And let me just real quick read that one line. I think I can find it pretty quick. That is just, I think, the big giveaway, because I've been wondering about this. I've been talking about this for a long time. He
Mm-hmm.
says, um, it's tables aglow, crystals shimmering, and every detail set to honor those who make planetary salvage possible. He's talking about the patrons' ball, Chris.
Exactly.
He's
Although,
talking about the patrons' ball that
mhm.
now they have in England at the IAS Gala. And this was the question I had when they really started to push LRH Hall funding, which was about, I don't know, 10 years ago. I know it's a much older idea than that. I know they've been planning this for 30 years.
Oh yeah.
But about 10 years ago, they really kind of stepped up the funding. We started to
Yep.
see renderings and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, once he has this big hall right there next to the flag building, why would he have New Year's Eve at the Shrine in LA? Why would he have the IAS Gala in a tent in St. Hill? He's going to have everything there. And so this hints at that. That's what
Yep.
Shane Johnson said there is clearly a reference to the Patrons Ball that now happens at St. Hill in England. I think he's going to have everything there. I think for security reasons. I think so that he doesn't have to fly anywhere.
Yep.
But Alex argued with me a little bit. He thinks that there's still a reason to have something at St. Hill because that's where all the Europeans can go, and I understand that. But I kind of feel like Dave Miscavige wants it all there. And then the other thing I want to say in response to your Tabernacle Choir thing is, I heard from Tom DeVot, and DeVot sent me a very interesting reaction and said, "Look, this is what Dave's been talking about forever. This is the monument to Dave. This is the finishing touch for him. This is all about him. This is going to be his palace."
Yep.
And I think there's something to. I think he's right. I think
Yep.
he can never replace the tech. That's all Hubbard. But with the flag building and the L. Ron Hubbard Hall, that's going to be David Miscavige's ultimate palace.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think it rankles Miscavige, in fact, that he has to call it the LRH Hall. So I'm, and maybe there's other things in the future as well. We'll see where his ego takes all of this. That is going to be interesting no matter what. That's for sure. Alex has a point on the European whales, and if Miscavige is going to inconvenience them too much, he may, the IAS, he can always fall back on heritage and legacy and all that, and keep it in England for those reasons. But I think that it might be interesting if he brought the Free Winds events on land too, right? So he doesn't have to go out to the boat anymore. I mean, you notice they really haven't been emphasizing much with the boat in the last many years.
I have not seen any photos, references to maiden voyage in years. Now
None.
they may still be having it, but I haven't nothing like we used to see. We used to see video, we used to see pictures, you used to definitely see Miscavige there. If Miscavige has been holding maiden voyage at the Free Winds in the last 10 years, I've seen no evidence of it. And it may just be the
Right?
wrong stuff hasn't gotten to me, but it's definitely de-emphasized at least.
Absolutely. Another one of those de-emphasized sorts of things. And I have to wonder about the internal numbers on OT8s because, that's what that event and that's what that boat are all about highlighting. Nobody cares about Route to Infinity course completions off the Free Winds.
I mean,
They want to know about
celebrating.
OT8s.
They're
Yeah.
still celebrating OT8s. We had some just a week or two ago, and we talked about that.
Okay.
They're still
Yep.
getting OT8s to get the certificates on the ship, but I don't know that Miscavige is going there. That's the thing that I
Yeah.
think you're right about is that I don't.
Yeah.
I think once he's got that haul, they're going to have New Year's there. They're going to have
Mhm.
LRH birthday there. They're going to have IAS, and those are going to be the most important things, and they're all there for him.
I think you're absolutely right. And IAS will be the real crown jewel of yearly events. That's where the whole model of Scientology goes, right? So there's some predictions for you there, everybody.
We'll see.
See
We'll
where all this
see.
goes. It's
And they're claiming that groundbreaking on the hall is going to happen this summer.
wow, finally. He's going to break out that golden shovel again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. So those were our stories for this week. It was an interesting week. It was Dianetics week. So Tony, any kind of heads up on what we got going? Any legal stuff coming up? Do we have any ideas?
I think something's happening with the court cases, but I haven't checked today, so I'll have to let you know, man.
All right, cool. Well, folks, make sure you can see Tony's Substack address right there on the screen right now. Make sure you go there, get your daily notifications, okay, subscribe, and then check back in with us on Mondays for this wrap up. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.